Welcome to Climbing the Pocket's Mock Draft Mondays. Who will the Vikings pick, and who's your favorite choice?
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another rousing edition of Mock Draft Monday. I'm your host, Tyler Fornes, and we have the producer, Dave, here. And we have a very special guest here tonight, that the digital content creator for SKOR North and the host of the Mackey and Judd podcast and Purple Daily, Phil Mackey. How you doing, man?
I am doing great. We are in the middle of this glorious free agency period. We're a month away from the draft, and I don't know that I can think of, I guess the offseason where the Vikings acquired Kirk Cousins was very exciting because they didn't know who the quarterback was going to be, but like that happened pretty early on. This has been a really exciting offseason so far, and the Vikings and the front office and Rob Brzezinski, the cap guru, have been just doing a ridiculous job of clearing money, signing players, clearing money, signing players, and we can talk about philosophy throughout this and if it's the right philosophy, but it's been fun so far. Thanks for having me on tonight.
No, absolutely. And I think kind of the first thing to kind of branch off of that, what's really interesting is not only have they been clearing a lot of money and making a lot of impactful moves for this year, but none of these moves have extended past the life of the Kirk Cousins contract, which kind of speaks volumes for what their strategy is. Their strategy is win now, and if it doesn't work, they can cut bait and they can start all over if they want. Now, reports have come out that the Wilfs really want a Steelers-type organization with continuity and consistency, where you don't have that really big valley of like a 3-13 year, but your valleys are like last year's 7-9. So I'm really interested to kind of see how that plays out and how they keep proceeding forward throughout the rest of the offseason.
Yeah, the Steelers thing and the Giants, the Wilfs have always been big Giants fans historically, right? And, you know, I think right now, 15, 16 years into their ownership tenure, there has been quite a bit of stability. I mean, they're like Steelers light. They're like diet Giants, right? They've had more stability than the Browns and the Jets and the Dolphins and some other teams over the last 15 years. But they've sustained borderline playoff success over 15 or 16 years as an ownership group, which, you know, don't get me wrong. I mean, I would not want to be the Jets fan base or the Browns fan. I mean, the Browns fan base now is finally getting a taste of winning for the first time in like 20 years. I think sometimes I wonder, and this is where I can be construed a little bit as negative on our Purple Daily podcast. I sometimes wonder if the ownership and the front office fear 2-14 and 3-13 more than they crave Super Bowl level success. I think it's very, very comfortable and very profitable being in the mix for the playoffs every year. And like the risk of potentially losing that and then falling into some sort of a 2-14 stretch for 2 or 3 years is something that they would like to avoid, rightfully so. And so they're kind of caught in this interesting area of, are they making the right moves to get back to playoff contention, or are they making the right moves to get to Super Bowl contention? And I think there's a bigger gap there than sometimes the organization, the media, and the fan base would maybe like, you just get in the playoffs and see what happens. I don't know that it's that simple in the NFL, but hey, they're going down. If this is Mike Zimmer's last year, he's getting every toy that he ever wanted, right? Defensively. They literally, I don't think, unless I'm missing one, because they traded for Mason Cole, I don't think they've spent a dime on an offensive free agent yet this offseason. So Mike Zimmer is getting his way going into what might be his final year. We'll see what happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's going to be really interesting how the offense pertains to the rest of the offseason, because you're right. The only two acquisitions were re-signing of Rashad Hill and then that trade for Mason Cole, who has no guaranteed left money on his deal. So if he ends up bombing in training camp, they can cut bait and get $2.1 million back for the cap. I just don't understand the Wolves' perspective, even though
You forgot the most important re-signing of the group.
What's
on the
that?
Offensive side.
Chad Beebe?
Chad Beebe, baby.
Oh, no.
Wide receiver number 6.
I would rather have his dad play right now than have Chad Beebe on the roster. I loved Don Beebe in the mid-'90s. He was just scrappy and talented and just fun.
We also
Don Beebe with one of the most legendary hustle plays in NFL history, right? He was the one who tracked down Leon Lett from whatever 80 yards away.
Yep.
Yep. And if I remember correctly, he caught the first touchdown pass that Frank Reich threw in the 41-38 Oilers game as well. So
Wow.
he's got a couple of kind of legendary moments that people remember.
So Dave is saying that Chad Beebe has some legendary bloodlines, and we just have to be patient.
No.
It's going to come to fruition at some point when you least expect it in a key primetime game.
Chad Beebe should be a great wide receiver 6. But and we also re-signed Amir Abdullah on the offensive side, our quote third string running back. So
yeah.
I don't like that one.
Was paid to the offense, just very, very little.
I would rather have my third running back be like a high spark athlete like Mike Boone was, who was only second to Saquon Barkley in his class. Like that's the kind of guy I want as my running back 3. Not Amir Abdullah, who was a second-round pick in 2014 and really hasn't done anything in the league. Like to me, it's just a misuse of resources. Try and develop a guy instead of having a guy who's already capped his ceiling and it's really not that good.
Yeah. So can I know Tyler's leading the show here, but I want to ask you a question. I want to interview you for a second, Tyler, because I appreciate when people have strong opinions and they stick to their convictions and then also move off an opinion if you're wrong. And I think people are waiting for me to move off my Kirk Cousins takes up too much of the cap for the Vikings to win a Super Bowl opinion. And I'm not going to move off that yet. I'll be the first to admit that I'm wrong, but my question for you is, you have been steadfast in saying guards don't matter, that you literally just need to plug a body in. Don't waste a first-round pick on a guard, right? Don't go and spend your entire free agency allotment on Joe Thuney. Like, guards don't matter. Does your opinion hold strong after the Dakota Dozier debacle from last year? And I'm not even picking at you. I'm curious. I want to know more about your stance on guards after watching what happened up the middle for the Vikings last year.
Here's the thing with guards don't matter, Phil. Guards only matter if they're abysmal. Guards matter if they're Dakota Dozier. What guards don't matter is about is the same thing that running backs don't matter is about. They just need to be replacement level and above. Get average guard play, and this offense is a top 5 offense more likely because you're able to handle that interior pressure. You get Austin Blythe in here, Forrest Lamp in here, give him $2-3 million a piece, and you have good guard play. That's all you need. And the only reason you pay a guard big time money is if it's Quentin Nelson or Zach Martin, guys who are monsters in the middle and are true difference makers that can bolster up the rest of your offensive line. Quentin Nelson, when at 6 to the Colts, completely changed the dynamic of that Indianapolis team just by his presence and how he plays the game and carries himself. That is what I consider the anomaly. It's not your normal. And when you look at guys in this draft like Elijah Vera Tucker, I think he's going to be a really good player. I don't think he's a difference maker at 14 when you could get a Kwity Paye, a Jalen Phillips, a Samuel Cosme, who is, according to Kentley Platt, Math Bomb on Twitter, he does the relative athletic scores where he takes the kind of the mock draftable spider web and averages it out. He is the second highest graded athletic tackle in the last 30 years. And the only one higher is Northern Iowa's Spencer Brown this year. And he even said that may flip-flop. Those are the kind of guys that – Those are the kind of guys you want to take at 14. You don't want to take a guard. Get good enough guard play. You don't need great.
I don't know if you guys will be able to hear this, but we have a sound bar on Purple Daily for whenever someone we're deep dive into football, but when someone brings a football term, we always award them a football sounder. And so what was the web term you just used, Tyler? The draft web?
Oh, mock draftable.
Football.
I'm gonna hit you with the football sounder right there. So you're basically saying, so Dakota Dozier mattered because he was the worst guard in the entire league, and they stuck with him for the entire season. But the difference between let's say Austin Blythe or Forrest, although I'm a little skeptical about Forrest Lamp because he was also graded by PFF as one of the 3 or 4 worst left guards. But Mason Cole shifting over, let's say he goes back to playing guard and performs at the level that he did a couple of years ago, that's going to be good enough to not be a train wreck. And so don't spend $16 million a year on Joe Thuney when Austin Blythe could do the trick, and then you free up money for the other positions. Is that fair?
It is absolutely fair. I believe if you have two really good tackles and a capable center, and I think part of Bradbury's issues is he's had just abysmal guard play next to him. And you could kind of tell, like, especially with Reef in like 2018, some of the things he was doing, he was not necessarily focusing on himself. He was trying to help out guard and then try and kick out to his responsibilities, and that wasn't working. So if you get two average guard plays, we're talking like about like PFF guard 35 and run and pass blocking it overall. Like, that's all you need. Get good guard play, and you can take this thing to the next level.
Yeah. It's going to be so interesting here now because the Vikings can still clear some cap space if they I think, I mean, Harrison Smith restructure is still on the table, but I think there's a Danielle Hunter contract still coming here. He re-added Vikings things to his Instagram, which may sound trivial and ridiculous, but like that matters in 2021. Whenever a player deletes references to the team they play for on their Instagram account, something's wrong. And so the fact that he added some things back in actually legitimately makes me believe that the conversation him and Zimmer had last week, as was reported, that Zimmer probably told him, dude, pipe down with this athletic story stuff, like deleting things off Instagram, just like relax. We have 15 things we need to do right now to clear some space and sign some players, but you're on our list. Don't worry. And so if they restructure his contract and give him the top dollar that he believes he deserves, and I think if he's healthy, he absolutely deserves, it probably gives them some relief in 2021, and then the cap hits go up. But to your point earlier, Tyler, they're they're being fairly irresponsible with contracts beyond 2021. I mean, they're loading in money, dead money for some of these players that might not even be on the roster for later seasons. And so I think they're pretty much all in for 2021. And then everyone's going to wait and see after the smoke clears. Are we still employed? Okay, great. Or maybe they win a Super Bowl. I don't know. But I think this is the most all in for one season I have seen since Mike Zimmer took over as coach, for sure. And I'm here for it. I mean, you might as well. Like, this franchise hasn't won a Super Bowl in 60 years. And so if that means pushing money out irresponsibly into future years and then dealing with the Kirk Cousins $45 million cap hit for 22 later, all right, I'll strap in. I don't know if this team's going to beat the Chiefs or if this team's going to beat some of the other contenders that are going to pop up in the NFC, but like, I can respect the fact that they're going out Mike Zimmer's way, and I can respect all the work they've done to clear money to sign free agents over the last 2 or 3 weeks.
Absolutely. And when you look at it, the really only big hit so far, as far as dead money is concerned next year, is that Anthony Barr contract with, I think, $10.8 million. And considering that when they went into last year, there was so much, like with free agency, there was just so much unknown. Nobody knew what the cap was going to be, and nobody knew that it was going to be $183 million when it was projected to be, around 210. So you're talking almost a $30 million swing. And I think Rob Brzezinski's done a great job of kind of managing expectations and being the cap guru who he is. And I'm really excited to kind of see how this season plays out because they are going all in on the season. And if a new regime takes over, they have the ability to cut bait on everything and start fresh, which I wonder if that was the directive from the Wilfs.
Yeah, it could be. I think the Wilfs are very much year to year as well here too. I mean, they gave the extensions to Zimmer and to Spielman, but at some point they want to win a Super Bowl too. And I do believe the reporting that Chad Graff did in The Athletic, and I know that our own Judd Zolgad on Purple Daily has done his own reporting on this, that there were exploratory talks between Zimmer and Spielman, who presumably were on the same page with this as they took it to the Wilfs, saying, listen, Kirk Cousins is a good quarterback, and we appreciate everything he's done to this point. There are some flaws, but like, we appreciate him. We can't do the whole 31 million, 45 million cap hit thing with him. Like, we either need to restructure and then guarantee him more money at age 35, 36, or there's enough teams looking for quarterbacks, including the 49ers, and Kyle Shanahan came out again today and said how much he loved Kirk Cousins before they signed Jimmy Garoppolo. So I do believe, based on reporting, that the Vikings look to potentially trade Kirk Cousins and maybe even just take a step back at that position for a minute while they crafted something more for the next 3 years. And the Wilfs said, we lost a bunch of money last year because nobody sat in that stadium, and we need to be relevant in 2021. And we don't want to risk taking a step back from a good, maybe not great, but good quarterback. And that's sort of that's the crossroads that they're at. I mean, right as of right now, even though guards don't matter, like they don't have a left side of the offensive line. I mean, Ezra Cleveland might play left tackle, but even then, like he's never played left tackle in the NFL before, so we don't know what he's going to look like at left tackle in the NFL. And you're trying to win a Super Bowl, so there's still moves to be made, and they've definitely made that defense a lot better. And it should be really good stopping the run on first and second down. But there's still enough question marks that it just makes me I need to see what happens over the next month with the remainder of free agency and the draft before I really commit to, okay, this is what I think this team can do in 2021. I don't know what they can do in 2021 yet because they don't have a left side of the offensive line. So I guess we'll see.
Absolutely, Phil. And I think that means it's time to try and rebuild the left side of that offensive line. And let's start our 4-round mock draft. I don't know how familiar you are with the simulators, Phil, but we always use the Draft Network. It's to me, it does a fantastic job. Plus, it gives us the ability to make trades, which we all know Rick Spielman. He's going to find a way to have 7 picks in round 7. And
so we got it. Yeah, they already lost a 7th round pick. You got to start trading back. Got to start stockpiling, baby.
Mm-hmm.
And here we go. First one off the board will be. Let's get this going.
So just for clarification, so we are all in the same front office here, and we are all collaborating for each pick, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like Tyler's the president of football operations, and we're just like in the scouting department here, giving you our takes.
Yeah, pretty much. We usually just come to a consensus and try and build based on what we've done previously and kind of where the team is at the moment.
Wow!
And just
look at this.
Kind of let it happen.
Oh my!
Giants want us to trade up.
I love this. Listen, anything involving like 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round picks, like I'm giving those extra picks out like candy to move up in this draft. So I mean, I don't know what you guys think. You can overrule me for being too reckless here, but I kind of love this. Like anything after round 4, I'm just willing to just sort of give it away to move up in this draft. So what do you guys think?
You know, we usually don't move up in these drafts. I think this would be a really fun exercise to kind of play off everything we've done. Dave, let's do it.
Okay.
Wow.
Accepting.
Wow. I just like twisted your arm into being more reckless than you ordinarily are. I feel empowered right now. Can we trade up again? Let's trade up to 2.
I would like to do that.
Well, one thing we like to do here, Phil, is with mock drafts specifically, they're a fun exercise. They're to try and paint the picture of what could possibly happen in the NFL draft. And honestly, I think if you had a guy like Kyle Pitts available at 11, if you had a Penei Sewell fall to 11, I think then you would really see the Vikings try and make that jump up because those are, in my opinion, they're like generational type players at their positions. You're talking like the future All-Pro by the end of their rookie contract. So I don't think it's an impossibility.
Can you hear that?
Does that mean we're on the clock, or is that your phone ringing?
It's my phone ringing.
Dave, that's good.
Dude, that's a trade.
Right.
I mean, that might be destiny calling right there.
So here's what we got on the board. We've got 2 quarterbacks, Justin Fields and Mac Jones. Mac Jones makes no sense because we don't need a Kirk Cousins replacement. The only way you make that trade or move is Mac Jones is valuable on a rookie contract. Kirk Cousins would be valuable on a rookie contract, but he's not so valuable when you're paying him a $30+ million cap hit. Javonta Smith is still on the board. J.C. Horn, Christian Darrisaw. There's a lot of really good players available that can help the Minnesota Vikings this year and beyond. When you're taking a look at this, Phil, what jumps out to you?
So the first thing that jumps out to me is the fact that Justin Fields obviously is still on the board. And I think if I'm in this position, even though I already traded up, so I've already given up picks to move up, I'm kind of thinking, is there a team behind me that didn't think Justin Fields was going to fall this far that might want to give me extra picks to move back? And so I'm looking at New England. I'm looking at, I'm actually looking at
football team.
Washington, I'm kind of surprised that Carolina didn't draft Justin Fields or Trey Lance. So they let a couple guys go by.
The Broncos went to Trey Lance, which will have everybody in Denver here all excited.
I think the other really interesting name here, and if it was a different scheme and if it was a different organization, the fact that Devontae Smith is still on the board, this is one thing we've talked about on Purple Daily, is just like the tantalizing idea of creating a modern 3 deep with Thielen and Jefferson and Devontae Smith is super fun to play out. But the way that the Vikings operate schematically, offensively, there's just I don't know that it's even like not. You'd almost have to bring in a new offensive scheme, or at least be a lot more pass heavy within your current scheme to make that a valuable pick. And so I would actually be looking to trade down here again, which is weird. But if I had to make a pick, I think Christian Darrisaw. I'm grabbing an offensive tackle here, and I'm probably taking Christian Darrisaw. But what do you guys think?
See, you just made Dave's heart smile because he loves the big boys in the trenches. I love Christian Darrisaw. He's my offensive tackle too right now. He is a mauler in the running game, and he is technically proficient and really successful in the pass game as well. He does have a little bit to clean up with his footwork, hand placement, but a lot of that technique stuff is just stuff that you can refine at the next level. He has all the traits. He's got the movement skills. He's got the power, the anchor. He's got everything that you want, and especially when you're talking about a guy who I consider number 2 in this class. I don't consider Rashawn Slater a tackle. I have him as a second-round guard. And I think he can be elite at that guard position, but I don't see him being super successful playing tackle. So Darrisaw, I think, would be a great pick. I think if we did want to make that trade back, Washington makes sense for 2 reasons. One, we'll be able to get the second-round pick, and New York would never trade with Washington and do that interdivisional stuff. So you could buy this pick to then flip it, kind of like the Miami Dolphins did with 12 to move right back up to 6. So I think that could be something we could explore as well. Devontae Smith kind of worries me. That 170-pound frame. When I watch the film, he is not very good with physicality. The few times that he got hit with press and he got punched in the shoulder, it wasn't very good. And the Alabama offense was fantastic at utilizing space, getting guys in space to work freely. And that's where Devontae Smith was the most successful. And in the red zone, he was working like Kyle Rudolph. He was mossing guys. So I worry about his transition. If he faces a Stephon Gilmore, is Gilmore going to punch him in the mouth, and is that the end of Devontae Smith? Like, for me, that's a big worry. I don't worry about that with a Jalen Waddle because he's 5'10", 180 pounds, and he is Tyreek Hill. Like, Tyreek Hill's a lazy comp, but the way they play, how their speed is almost identical, it fits really well. Like, to me, Devontae Smith being 170 pounds and not a burner is an outlier I don't want to take a chance on. But I won't blame anybody.
3, we use what, 30 plays? Catches 30 passes a season?
To me, it doesn't matter. The Vikings took Randy Moss in a run-heavy league in '98 when they had 2 Pro Bowlers in Chris Carter and Jake Reed. If you think he's the guy, who cares?
Yeah, but that was under a different offense where they were throwing. Yeah. It was a vertical offense that Denny ran.
But it was also a different era, though, too, Dave. So if you think that player is that guy, you make it work.
Yeah, I worry that Randy Moss.
But what I'm saying is I don't think Devonta is that guy. And
let me ask you this, Tyler. Do you think who's the better receiver for you? Is it Devontae Smith or Rashad Bateman?
Bateman. Bateman's my wide receiver 2, and Waddle's my wide receiver 1. I have those 2 and Devontae Smith separated by about 1.5 points. Waddle's at 91, Bateman's at 90, Smith's at 89.5. I just think Bateman's the more complete player. He does literally everything you need. He can play inside and out, and you don't have to worry about physicality. He can burn you with his route running, and he's got deceptive long speed. He needs to clean up his releases a little bit. He has this weird false step that he makes every single release that you can fix with some coaching early on. But in that RPO game that Minnesota liked to run, it really didn't matter. He was burning people anyways.
Yeah, I love it. I'm going to hit you one more time.
Football.
Dude, amazing breakdowns. All right, so can we? What are we going to make a pick here? Or can we offer a trade? What are you guys feeling here?
We can offer a trade. I don't mind.
Let's see if Washington.
Yeah,
I agree. Let's see if Washington will give us their first and second round pick is so we can maybe move back 5 spots and get Darius or maybe Tevin Jenkins or my guy Samuel Cosme. Like, if we can be able to get that, I think it'd be worth the move back. Dave, you see where it says AFC?
Yeah, hit NFC.
Hit NFC. There you go.
I love it. How often do you get guests who just like demand trade offers all the time? Am I being high maintenance right now? Like, I think this is how it would work. Like if Justin Fields is still on the board at 11, even after you've made a trade, I think you're on the phone. I think you're on the phone right now. You're like, hey, anybody want a franchise quarterback who's played, what did he have, like 50 touchdown passes or something? I mean, like, the guy's ridiculous. So
40 touchdowns and 1 interception in the regular season in 2019. Obviously, last year was an anomaly, but if you watch that Clemson game, that's some of the most dominant tape I've ever seen. That and Jalen Waddle against Missouri, it's
all right.
Domination.
So we're offering, obviously, the first-round pick swap, and then we're demanding their second-round pick, which gives the Vikings a second-round pick again.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see what they say. Bunch of clowns in that front office.
Oh, there we go.
Wow, dude.
All
and then who they take? And they took a cornerback. What are they doing? Ridiculous.
Did they take Farley or was it J.C. Horn?
J.C. Horn. They took J.C. Horn.
That was
wow. So
if we want to build up picks,
I'd say that's a no. That's too far back to not get a 1 or a 2 next year in return.
Here we get a 1, a 3 for a 1. I decline that too.
Also, so that trade, okay, there's another one. The previous trade knocks you out of the first round. You want that 5th-year team option if possible too on a player. So you want to stay in the first round if you think there's someone there. All right. Wow.
Okay, we have the hottest hyped quarterback presently, Mac Jones.
What if we just took Mac Jones here and then logged off? Like, what would happen if we took Mac Jones and then
we've taken quarterbacks before?
It's this Kwity Paye here, right? Don't you take Kwity? Do you take Kwity Paye here?
He's still on the board.
Or Jalen Phillips.
So I would take Kwity Paye. He is my edge 1. Phillips is my edge 2. Biggest thing with Phillips is he retired after the 2018 season because he had ankle and wrist injuries and he had multiple concussions. But on the flip side, he was the number 1 overall recruit in the 2017 class, picked UCLA, and he kind of struggled. But this past year, opposite Quincy Roche, he was really, really good and showed he was a true complete pass rusher. He kind of reminds me of Von Miller in the fact that he can do a little bit of everything. He can stand up, he can put his hand in the dirt, he can play a wide 9, he can play a 5 technique, everything in between. You could put him inside and stand him up in like the Zimmer's A-glat blitz scheme. So he could do a little bit of everything. And I really like him, but the concussions are a really big red flag. And because we don't have access to that medical information and truly understand what's going on, I'll take Kwity Paye, who is, in my opinion, the best run defender from the edge position. He's got multiple pass rush moves. His 3-cone at 6.37 would have been the fastest 3-cone ever by a lineman, second fastest in the history of the combine if he was able to run it. The only faster one was in 2017. J.J. Thomas, I think he was a cornerback. He was drafted in like round 7 by the Browns. Like, we're talking historic stuff. I love Kwity Paye. He is.
Yes.
Kwity Paye is going to be exactly what you got from Everson Griffin, except younger and even more athletic.
I love it. I think I'm on the same page here. I think the fact that, the way, like, just to zoom out for a second, whenever you have a chance to trade back, accumulate picks, and draft the same guy that you might have drafted 8 picks earlier, it's a win. And the fact that Kwity Paye is in the conversation at 14, you move back while you moved up and then you move back. So it's a little bit of a complicated, math problem here with the picks. But like the fact that you still get Kwity Paye and you're drafting in the second round, that's a win. I think we should pull the trigger.
There we go. Dave, we're beefing up the trenches.
And just what everyone's been clamoring for here, more left tackle and left guard ambiguity after signing and drafting defensive players.
It Here's the interesting part, though. This offensive line class is almost as good as the receiver class. It is very deep. You can get a starting left tackle in the middle of round 2. And cool. I'm very intrigued by it. And the fact that you get the athletic freak of Kwity Paye at 19, to me, is a no-brainer. I'm sorry, Tanishka, I see you in the comments. We're going defense, and it's not a corner at least. So the Vikings fans don't have to really panic and take their 5th first-round corner in the last decade.
Yeah. Right. And you got Mike Zimmer at the podium with Kwity Paye with his arm around him and a big smile, unlike when he was at the podium when Kirk Cousins was signed and he was standing with a dejected face.
He's like, we're paying how much for this? This is ridiculous.
Yeah. All right, we got more trades. We got Titans wanting to give us their second down to 53, move 2 spots plus a 7. That sounds like a Rick
Spielman 100% says yes to that, right? I can just wait. It's 2 spots and I get an extra 7th? Where do I sign?
And,
yeah.
And then we have, who is it?
Ooh, Buccaneers, right?
2, 4, and 7 to move down 13 spots by my math.
So, honestly, the way I look at this, get the 7th round pick to go down 2 spots, and you're really not taking a chance of missing out on a guy who can start day 1. I think if you drop 13 spots, you could really miss out on a tackle. Where the depth of this draft is, you do need it,
Decline.
And there will be value here.
We're not dropping out of the second.
Yeah, and that was, and my thought was going to be basically like everything you just said. You can drop back 2 spots, get a 7th round pick, whatever. Like it doesn't matter either way, really. And then the other one, you're dropping back 13 spots. How much do you value a 4th round pick? Because I think we traded a 4th round pick in our initial trade to move up to 11. So. Yeah, and so the question here would be, sitting at 53, I think you have to go offensive line here, like whether it's Leatherwood or Mayfield. Now, this is where I'm going to defer 100% to Tyler. If I remember right, Leatherwood was initially, like before the season started, a lot of people had him going maybe even top half of the 1st round. Like I feel like he was higher in a lot of mock drafts. Why did he fall? Pardon my ignorant question. And is it automatic that you would go offensive line here, or are there other valuable things that you're going to tell me, no, man, no, it doesn't make sense?
I'm going to be honest. I think you really just try and take best player available. And if offensive line is within like 3 or 4 spots and there's not a transcending guy who's like, oh, this guy's number 20 on my board and we're picking at 53. When I look at the board, probably offensive line. The big thing with Leatherwood and guys like Rousseau, when you're talking about summer scouting and when you're talking about grinding the tape right before the draft, it's 2 different things. When you're watching over the summer, you're trying to get a grasp of what is this player? What do they generally do? So when you go into the season, you can kind of build off that and really start to gain a true form of what the prospect is. Alex Leatherwood, 5-star recruit, plays left tackle at Alabama. He took over for Jonah Williams, who was a stud. And, I mean, it's Alabama. Alabama is just a football factory. So, but when you really watch the film, he's got great length. He's got great size. He's got some power. But the man can't move within any extended space. He can't climb to the second level well. He really only moves well in short spaces. So, to me, he transitions best as a guard, and that's how I graded him. I don't think he's a long-term answer at tackle. And maybe if you play him in a man-gap power scheme, but even when you're talking about the Ravens, like Orlando Brown is slow, but he's not incapable of moving. Ronnie Stanley's a freak athlete at left tackle, and he's great at climbing to the second level. I worry about Leatherwood being able to move laterally well enough. When he played against Azeez Ojulari, the Georgia edge, if Ojulari beat him off the snap, it was over. Leatherwood couldn't keep up. And then once he overcompensated to go outside, Ojulari just beat him on the inside with a spin or a little swim move. So I have him at guard.
So Tyler, I should ask you this too, like just to back up a step. Do you think Ezra Cleveland is a franchise left tackle?
I think it's going to be tough because Ezra Cleveland played left tackle in college. I thought he was a pretty good left tackle. I think they need to give him a chance to play left tackle. But to me, all the indications are he's going to be a long-term guard, and that's how the Vikings view him, which I don't quite understand the logic, considering how incredibly well he tested at tackle. He played very well. Even in the bowl game against Washington, when you're playing a bunch of NFL caliber pass rushers, he played pretty well in 2019. So I don't know. I see him as the long-term answer at right guard, which kind of stinks, but I think he should be given a chance. He just won't be.
I did
a
deep
Dave.
dive on Ezra last year, and Ezra, his strength was against speed because he could move out and block speed rushers. His weakness was power.
Yep.
Putting him at guard helps with the power because he's got to use power. He has no choice. But I think not using him at tackle and taking advantage of that speed, something which Riley Reif lacked, is a detriment to how the Vikings offensive line is run. I think they should try him at left tackle, personally.
Yeah.
I thought they should have had Cleveland.
Go ahead, Ty.
I was going to say you should have put Cleveland at left tackle, slid Riley Reif into left guard, because his skill set translates really well into guard. And he would have had a very capable guard next to him where he would be afforded to make some mistakes. It wouldn't have to really shoulder the burden of being the sole responsibility on the outside.
That would have made more sense.
I think what they're probably just wrestling with right now is the fact that they might feel like, oh man, on paper it makes sense to put Ezra Cleveland at left tackle, and we feel like it's worth a shot, but this isn't exactly the year to just like go in sort of blind at left tackle. And so this is just educated speculation just based on reports and based on some things that Judd and I are hearing. I think they're trying to sign a short, like a 1-year veteran left tackle that has experience. I've heard the name Russell Okung, but they'd have to clear out more money to make that happen. And maybe I'm behind. If he signed with somebody in the last like 36 hours, then I apologize. So, but like I think they would prefer to keep Cleveland at guard this year while they're trying to win big, so they don't have to go in with a huge question mark. Sign like a 1-year left tackle in the bargain bin here, and just reassess after 2021. Now, if they can't sign an established left tackle, or I mean, there's been all these Orlando Brown Jr. trade rumors, not even just rumors. Like the Vikings are absolutely in the mix and having conversations with Baltimore. That's another option, and that would be a pretty low cap hit for 2021. Again, more evidence that like you're trying to reduce costs in 2021. You'd have to pay him big money or let him walk after 2021. So there are so many scenarios still to play out between now and the draft that will affect this exact decision that we're sitting on with pick 53 here.
Well, let's get to pick 53, because when we take a look at the board, you've got Levi Onwuzurike, who's my interior defensive lineman 1, still available on the board. You have Wyatt Davis, who, as I was watching some Jason Owa tape the other day, I noticed Wyatt Davis was on the ground a lot. And I haven't finished his film for 2020, but 2019 definitely looked way better. And I haven't heard very good things about this year. Landon Dickerson is a first-round talent, but he also has 3 torn ACLs. So how can you trust him to stay healthy? Is he worth the pick here? We're seeing some Quinn Miners, who I know they finally added to the simulator. I love Miners. I gave him a 2nd-round grade. He doesn't play like a D3 player. He plays like he played at Michigan for 4 years, and he's just playing bully ball with that crop top. He is a fun watch.
So you said so. I might butcher the pronunciation here, but Onwuzurike, is that how you pronounce it? Onwuzurike. So yep. I've seen him as a 1st-round grade all over the place. You just confirmed it, saying that he's your number 1 interior defensive lineman. Is he run-stopping interior defensive lineman, or can he play on 3rd down? Because if he can play on 3rd down, he can help you this year. So pull the trigger.
So the weird thing about Washington's defense is they treat their defensive linemen like hockey lines. They play this really weird 3-3-5 scheme where it's not really anything super fluid. Like they just do all kinds of weird things. And he played a lot of 1 technique right over the center. And his best projection is as a 3 technique gap penetrating pass rushing tackle. So that's kind of what you're going to get from him at the next level. And that's where he's going to be the most successful. I think he needs a year to really refine some of the things that he's going to be doing at the next level to really unlock that true potential. But I love Onwuzurike's game. I'm friends with an insider who works with with Washington, and he just can't say enough good things about him. Just the person, the character, the football player. So I tend to kind of defer to him, and when I watch the tape, it really bore it out. He's a wrecker on the inside.
And I'll tell you, I know that there's been very credible discussions or reports of discussions that have the Vikings maybe trying to land Geno Atkins as like a reclamation project for 2021, like a 1-year contract. Well, obviously, if you felt like you could, and just, you know, for the audience, like, so Geno Atkins would probably be more of a Dalvin Tomlinson and or Michael Pierce come out, and then Geno Atkins, I don't think he's going to be an 800 snaps guy anymore. Like, for a long time, he was a stay on the field all the time guy. He's probably more of a get on the field on third down and pass rush situations guy. But if you can accomplish that with a young player with upside that you think might be able to help you in 2021 in more of a limited role, and then become a full-on starter and 800 plus snaps guy in 2022, then maybe that's the maybe you're going defense with your first 2 picks here. I don't know.
I'm definitely not against it. And let's be honest, with the way that Zimmer's been talking and how he thinks that nothing needs to be done for the offense, like, load up on the defense. And I think that's a real possibility that we need to consider with how Zimmer has spoken about how he needs to have this defense and how he thinks the offense is good. Maybe we take on Onwuzurike, bulk up that defensive line. We take a look at defensive lines from the past few years and how, like, the Eagles in 2017 and the 49ers when they made the Super Bowl 2 years ago, they were able to go like 6-8 deep and keep rotating guys in and out to keep them fresh throughout games. And I think Onwuzurike gives you a real potential to be able to put him in there, kind of like how they wanted to use Tom Johnson 2016, 2017 before the Sharif Floyd injury. Get him in as a pass rushing only specialist and let him be able to use his fresh legs consistently.
Yeah. Now, I just want to say, because it sounds like we're gonna pull the trigger on another defensive player here. Like, we basically just talked ourselves into. I just want to reiterate, we don't know who's playing left tackle or left guard for the Minnesota Vikings in 2021, and we just spent every dime of outside free agency money on defense and the first 2 picks of the draft on defense. I'm here for it.
Team?
Screw it.
Yeah.
Let's just do it.
Yeah. Well, when you talk about the veteran left tackle market, you do have some relatively good players. That you have Russell Okung, who you mentioned. Alejandro Villanueva is still available. I'm wondering if he's just kind of holding out so he can go back to Pittsburgh. But there are players available that can help you this year as kind of like that stopgap role. And I think in the 3rd round, we're still going to be able to find a couple quality offensive linemen. Brady Christensen's still on the board. Deontay Smith, who is my guy out of East Carolina. You've got Spencer Brown, Northern Iowa. There are guys who you can get that can make real contributions either this year or next year.
So Buffalo's calling with a trade offer. Oh, hello, Buffalo. Yeah, what's your trade offer? Does it include giving Stephon Diggs back to us? No? Okay, click.
Well, they want us to give a 3rd and a 5th to move up to a 2nd.
Yeah, they would.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Let's do it. Let's try and get that offensive lineman. There were still some really good ones on the board when we last talked. And
you guys
taking a look right here.
I need to take a quick 30 seconds. I will be right back. Discuss the
Sounds good, Dave. So kind of the 2 positions or 2 players right now that I think we should be talking about, Phil. Brady Christensen, the BYU tackle, who had just a monster pro day. So he was incredibly athletic. Like, we're talking the same way as Cleveland and Brian O'Neill. And then James Hudson, the offensive tackle of Cincinnati. He started his college career at Michigan as a defensive lineman, transferred to Cincinnati, really only a 1-year starter. But when he got ejected for targeting in the Peach Bowl against Georgia, that you're talking, that lost them the football game. So these are 2 players that can come in, and you may not want to play them immediately, but they can play as an athletic player, just like Brian O'Neill did in 2018. And I think they can make a big difference.
And notice how once you start talking about offensive tackles, the big dog's got to eat. So I think my question to you would be, like, once you get to this, because you've said, starting caliber players for sure, halfway through round 2, maybe 2/3 of the way through round 2. At what point are we talking about players that shouldn't be expected to contribute mightily to the 2021 Vikings? Because that's what I want to know about. Like, you've studied so much deeper into the draft than I ever will. This is your bread and butter. Are we talking about players? Are we talking about depth for the future here, like projects to be developed? Or are we still talking about players that could actually play meaningful roles for the Vikings in 2021?
I think it's kind of a combo. I think when you're talking about guys like Brady Christensen and James Hudson, you're talking about absolute athletic specimens who played really well at the college level. You would prefer for them to redshirt a year. But if you had to throw them in there, they could use their athletic profile to really make a difference year one and at least be a good replacement. Like, let's say Rashad Hill got hurt and you didn't start them right away. They could come in, and I think they have the profile to be successful. I don't know if you want to count on them year one, but I don't think that they're incapable of it either. So we're kind of at that in-between spot where you don't know if you want to start them year one, but they probably can. And I think that's kind of the tough part is you don't want to rely on a late second, early third round pick to start at left tackle. But if you
especially
these guys have the profile.
The Vikings just like it's they're not batting zero, but like Brian O'Neill was a second round pick that's been wonderful, and he's going to get a contract and he deserves it, and he's been great. But they haven't been great the last 10 years or so at finding, like, I think Rick Spielman subscribes to the same theory with guards as you do, Tyler, which is, all right, we're not going to spend $10 million on a guard in free agency. That's a terrible way to spend money. We're going to just find guys in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th rounds, develop, plug them in, and see what happens. Mm-hmm. I'm really wondering about the development part of that equation with the Vikings. It just doesn't say. I mean, Sperano seemed to have some success for a couple of years or for a year. I can't remember if he was here for 1 or 2 years and then tragically passed away. But they just haven't been that great at finding the guys along the offensive line in the middle rounds and then developing them through their system. That part of it seems to be missing for the Vikings compared to some other teams. Maybe I'm wrong. Your thoughts?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head. Like when you're talking about like the late 90s, early 2000s Vikings and what guy like Mike Tice was able to do with those linemen, like finding Matt Burke and John Sullivan in round 6 and turning them into all-pro players. Like, we don't have that anymore. We don't have that guy who can make that transformation. And the fact that we don't have it is really frustrating because there are guys like Wyatt Teller was a 5th round pick and he was a first team all-pro last year as a 3rd-year player. There are guys who you can turn into that. And it's not super hard to do at the guard position. Like, you don't have to be the best athlete. If you have technique and strength, you can figure it out. And I wish we had that kind of coaching, but we just don't. So
the curse of Willie Beavers. It's the curse of Willie Beavers.
Oh, Willie Beavers.
Sperano was here for 2017. It was the best offensive line performance under Zimmer. Yeah. Spiel died fall of 2018.
Yep. And in fact, I believe so. Pro Football Focus, I believe, started tracking offensive line metrics in like 2000 or grades in like 2004, 5, somewhere in there. Like, they have a backlog. They've gone back and looked at film. The Vikings, in terms of pass protection as an offensive line, have only been top half of the league twice since then, which is nuts. One was in 2009. And I think, and I don't know how this factors in, but I think when you talk about some of the great quarterbacks of all time, and Brett Favre is in there, they tend to elevate their offensive linemen. Like, they have instincts in the pocket that might bail a left guard out because they strafed one step to the right and stepped up and made a throw. And the guy might get a better grade on that play subconsciously because the quarterback made a move, or he sees something at the line of scrimmage and communicates something that another quarterback might not, right? And then the other year was 2017. Those are the only 2 years that the Vikings have had good pass blocking units, according to Pro Football Focus. And I think, some of it too, and again, like the pass blocking grades are in a vacuum outside of like the mobility of a quarterback. But again, the mobility of a quarterback in Case Keenum could move a little bit. I think there is some gray area there where if a quarterback is mobile and makes the offensive line look better, then they might have slightly better grades in certain situations than if you're Kirk Cousins and you're completely at the mercy of whether there's pressure or not. So, anyways.
Who are we picking?
I think right now, let's take our guy Deshaun's boy, Brady Christensen. He's got the athletic profile. PFF's #1 rated tackle in the 2020 season in the college game. So that'll tell you something about his play.
And we know Spielman watched him up at his pro day.
Yep, and I don't think he was there for Zach Wilson. The trend with Rick Spielman has been linemen. He has been going to pro days, and at every pro day, there's been linemen for him to see. So I think they're really focusing on the trenches, or at least that's my perception for how his pro day visits have gone. A 3 and a 4 to go up. I would say no. We've got 2 defensive linemen and offensive linemen. I think there's too much talent to be had in round 3 and round 4 to give up one of those picks.
Sorry, Jets. Really sorry. Now, if you want to offer up Sam Darnold for basically nothing to be the heir apparent to Kirk Cousins, I mean, let's have a conversation. Let's talk. Wow, look at this. I love that the Broncos. I love that George and Rick are just on the phone here, seemingly all the time.
I think we shouldn't rule out the fact that if Denver gets really, really panicky and they try and make a move for Cousins, because Patton loves him from everything that I know.
Really?
And that team's a capable quarterback away to really make a Super Bowl run, because they have all the weapons. They have a good offensive line. They have a really, really good defense with Vic Fangio.
But
Their
again,
consistency at quarterback away.
But again, all right, it was confirmed that the San Francisco wanted Cousins, offered at least a first plus stuff to get Cousins. They ran it up the flagpole. Mark Wilf said no. Now, if Peyton calls and says, I want Cousins, I'm willing to trade, they still got to run it up to Mark Wilf. Is he going to accept it?
Here's the problem now. Like, if we're talking about that scenario now, after they've gone all in on defense and free agency, they are pot committed to Kirk Cousins as the quarterback in 2021. I think there's almost, as a guy who has spent the entire offseason finding fun ways to trade Kirk Cousins and get out from underneath that contract, there is almost no chance at this point that they trade him until after the 2021 season. So
I think you're right, but I want to introduce you to the biggest Young Jeezy super fan in the world, and his name is Drew Lock. I think maybe you could convince the Wilfs with that athletic upside and that cannon. It's a pipe dream, but it's not insane at the same time.
Yep. I legitimately thought for a while there was a 3-team trade possibility that, that maybe sent Teddy Bridgewater back as a stopgap for 1 year that they might say yes to. But it seems like now the Carolina is actually just a total side conversation. They were very much reportedly all in on trading for Deshaun Watson, and now they're probably like, let these legal proceedings play out. Yeah, and so and now Teddy Bridgewater deleted all the Panther stuff from his Instagram, and so that's uncomfortable. So I don't know what they're gonna do. But anyways, are we gonna take this Broncos offer?
I would say no. Let's just ride it out until 90 and just kind of see what happens. There are a lot of guys that are on the board.
Wow. Speaking of the Panthers,
a 7 this year and a 2 next year. Even in a simulation where we would just get the pick, I'm saying no. Spielman ain't going to do that either. We're not the New Orleans Saints.
His employment's on the line.
Yeah. All right.
Wow,
so
Stephen Jones on the phone here. So everybody wants this.
I want to say this. Don't decline it. I want to accept it. And the reason I want to accept it is I want to introduce Phil to probably my second favorite player in the entire class. His name is Dwayne Eskridge. Have you heard of Dwayne Eskridge?
Wow. No, tell me.
Dwayne Eskridge is a 5'9" receiver out of Western Michigan, same place Corey Davis went to school.
Wow, you're already trying to replace Chad Beebe. The dude signs back, and you're already trying to replace him.
So Dwayne Eskridge is probably going to be best as a slot. He could play the Z, but the one thing that Eskridge is that most slot receivers aren't, he was on Bruce Feldman's freak list. The guy at 5'9", like 190 pounds, can bench press like 350 and squat 5'10".
Wow.
And he runs in the 4.3s. He's only been playing the receiver position for 2 years because he was a cornerback, and he still has some room to grow, but he's an absolute freak athlete who's great at the catch point, and he does all these other things. And I think you could have some really fun flexibility and gadget type plays with a Dwayne Eskridge as he continues to learn the position. So
Yeah,
I would love to see him in purple, and he wouldn't be kind of like that Devontae Smith, like really want to go 3 deep. You could utilize him in the normal concepts that we run now, like a lot of crosses, some jet sweeps, and with Clint Kubiak having come from multiple different systems, obviously the main one is the West Coast wide zone that his dad basically helped invent in Denver. He's probably going to run a lot of that, but I think he's going to be more willing to use 11 personnel than ever before that we've seen with this system.
Let's do it. Let's pull the trigger here.
Accept it.
All right, Dave, accept it. I want Dwayne Eskridge, wide receiver, Western Michigan.
Hey, what dumb question. Is he a PJ Fleck guy, or did he come to Western Michigan after PJ Fleck, I suppose? Because PJ's been here for 3 years.
Well, Dwayne Eskridge is 23, so I think PJ Fleck did recruit him.
Wow. Oh, so he's a row the boat guy too. It's a no-brainer. He's a row the boat guy.
Yeah. As far as for you being in the media, that will be extra fun for you to talk to him about PJ Fleck and the row the boat stuff.
Yeah,
and to answer Douglas's question, he does return kicks. So you're going to have that kick return flexibility right away, which will really help early on because the Vikings have been abysmal at it for a couple of years.
All right, so
give
the
up
Bengals
that 7th round pick
to move up. Wait, okay, no. So we would move up 14 picks and give up a 7th. This is a yes, right?
I would say so, but Rick Spielman definitely wouldn't.
He loves that 7th.
In this simulation, we've been doing. Let's do it.
Let's move up. Let's throw a caution to the wind, Rick. Apologies for getting rid of all your 7th round picks.
But we are in a really good position here, Phil, because Ben Cleveland is on the board. He was viewed throughout the season as more of a power guy, but at his pro day, he tested off the charts athletically. And one of the best parts is, aesthetically, he kind of looks like a mountain man. which is just extra fun.
And the Vikings would then corner the market on guys named Dalvin and guys with the last name Cleveland in the NFL. And so you have to make this pick 100%.
Yep. I think Ben Cleveland's the pick. Make Dave happy as well.
There it is.
And we are up again at, I think, 132.
I'm curious. I haven't been keeping track of all the quarterbacks as they've gone by. The Stanford and Texas A&M quarterbacks, have you seen them float by yet? Are they still on the board? Because I would still, even though the Vikings are all in for 2021, I would still be interested in taking a quarterback earlier than the 7th round. Like just having someone on the roster that could potentially be, a 15% chance to be a starter at some point. Which, by the way, I did the research last week on Purple Daily. When you start to look by round, and this is kind of obviously like this is kind of a nebulous exercise, but the last 20 years, when you're talking about first round quarterbacks, about 47%, I believe, have panned out to be at least quality starters, as my own definition, quality starters for at least multiple years. 3rd round, it's still like 19%. So like, it's not good odds, but like when you draft a quarterback in the 3rd round, the last 20 years, Russell Wilson's the obvious one, but there's still a somewhat decent chance that they could actually start games and be objectively good for you for a while. So I would have my radar up if I'm the Vikings in the 3rd and 4th rounds.
And I think you made a really good point about those two quarterbacks. Kellen Mond's an interesting one because he has every single trait in the book. He can make every throw. He's a great athlete. He's got the size, but he was incredibly inconsistent. And watching his career progress as just a college football fan, you could see he had it, but he was never able to consistently put it together. So that's scary. But because he has all the traits, I can see a quarterback's coach wanting to take him in round 3, round 4. Davis Mills, the Stanford guy, I have him as my quarterback 5, and I think he's better than Mac Jones. Davis Mills was the number 1 pocket passer in his recruiting class, and I believe it was 2018. Davis Mills has a cannon. He ran a 4.66 40. He's more mobile than he's given credit for, and he can make every throw in the book. He's a little inconsistent. He's had some injury issues. He tore his ACL in 2019. Like there's some red flags, but the talent is there. And I think you can really make a case that if you put him in the right system and he stays healthy, that he could be that 19%er, and you could really find a starter in round 3 for a long period of time.
Yeah, like I'm kind of at the point with the Sean Mannion situation. All due respect to Sean Mannion, like whatever due respect he deserves, I guess. I don't know, but you got to have something behind Kirk Cousins that is either more developmental or someone that you would actually feel like you could win a couple games if he was out for a month. And that's been one of the biggest praises of Kirk Cousins. He's never out for a month. He's one of the most durable starting quarterbacks in the NFL, but I just think it's time. And I think the Vikings for a while, especially early on in Kirk Cousins' contract, I think they were going out of their way to say, listen, we love you. You're our guy. We're not going to bring somebody in that's developmental because you're our guy. And we're going to bring in more of an assistant coach, sort of eye in the sky quarterback to help you out, to make you better. I think you have to move past that now that his contract is the way that it is. And he's 33 years old. And so all the more reason if one of these guys is on the board in the 3rd or 4th round, and maybe they're gone and we're just pontificating for a future scenario that may exist. But I would be interested in pulling the trigger on a quarterback in the 3rd or 4th round.
No, I completely agree. I think you should take a quarterback at least every other year because there's a good chance you're going to find a guy. Just think of what the Packers did in the early 90s with Brett Favre. They had guys that they were able to flip for big-time capital. Matt Hasselbeck, Mark Brunell, both got multiple picks, including ones on day 2. You can take those guys and turn them into good players. Matt Castle, Patriots drafted him in the 7th round, never started a game at USC behind Matt Leinart. They got 2 second-round picks for him when they shipped him to Kansas City. Jimmy Garoppolo, they drafted in the 2nd round thinking he'd be the heir apparent. They flipped him for a 2nd-round pick. Jacoby Brissett was a 4th-round guy. They flipped him for Philip Dorsett, who ended up playing a really big role on a Super Bowl run. So you can take guys as kind of like flyers in these middle rounds and turn them into capital later on. And that's not something that's an anomaly. People are able to do it. Matt Schaub was a backup quarterback in Atlanta, went for 2 2nd-round picks to Houston back in the day. So there's precedent. Take a guy, develop him, and you never know when 2017 is going to happen. 2016 is going to happen. You got to be prepared. And as good as Mannion is for Kirk Cousins mentally, he's not somebody you want to play.
Correct. 100%. So who's offering this trade? Can you scroll up a little bit there, Dave? Who's offering this?
Titans.
The Titans. I think that the Titans have snuck into our voicemail here a few times.
So we move down 2 spots in round 4, and we pick up an extra 4, and we give up a 5.
I mean, just for the sake of tonight's exercise, a 4-round mock, we almost have to say yes.
Oh, hold on. We're giving up 2 4s, so let's decline.
Yeah, you're right. Okay,
I misread it.
Yeah. Yep. So let's keep the 4s.
Okay. Here we go.
All right.
Pardon my coworkers. Both dogs have been making noise.
That is okay. All right. So at this spot in the draft, we've really addressed a lot of needs. And one of the things that I really like to do is I kind of like to take best player available. And when I look at the board at who's available, I have 4 names that jump out to me. Kylan Hill, the running back out of Mississippi State. I am in love with Kylan Hill.
Wow.
That he's a good athlete, not a great athlete, but he will run you over and like the Allen Iverson step over on Tyronn Lue, and he will just make you eat your words.
I'm going to tweet right now. Tyler thinks Vikings should jettison Dalvin Cook for Kylan Hill. Let's see what happens.
I will run with it. I love Kylan Hill, but I don't think he should be the starter this year. And then you've got David Moore, who I just watched, interior offensive lineman out of Grambling. He's 6'1", 335. He's built like a bowling ball, and he plays mean. Like that. I know you're a wrestling fan, and I am too. I'm wearing a Bullet Club T-shirt right now.
Wow,
He threw a couple of guys. Absolutely. He threw a couple guys just like judo style in the game I was watching, and he is fun, and he stood up at the Senior Bowl and was able to take everyone on. Osa Odingzua, the defensive lineman out of UCLA, I think, and Adetokunbo Ogundeji from Notre Dame. Both of those guys, I think Andre Patterson would really like. They're not going to be phenomenal athletes, but they're guys who have a lot of length and really can create havoc, kind of like as interior, like sub-package rushers and a 5 technique, like run stopper opposite of Danielle Hunter. And I think they could project to be really quality starters in the National Football League, maybe being like that 6 to 8 sack range. I think those are guys that you could really target right now. Kind of what we've done so far in the draft, Phil. What are you looking at with how this board sits?
Yeah, I mean, so I love so this is going to, again, this is going to make me sound like I'm a hater, but like, I don't like paying running backs, and I didn't love the Dalvin Cook contract. He's amazing.
Yep.
He's legitimately one of the most fun Vikings offensive players to watch in my life. And I just don't think when you look at some of the other holes they've had on the roster, and the fact that he's just kind of an injury concern on a regular basis. And then you look at the fact that look at the last 10 Super Bowl winners. Look at their starting running back in the Super Bowl, and like all of them made less than $2 million, right? So for all those reasons, I am very interested in keeping good running backs in the pipeline for a lot less money than Dalvin Cook makes for the future. And just it's a position that, especially with him, you're going to expect to miss games. So I love the Kylan Hill idea here. I trust your instinct on your evaluation there. So I would draft a running back here. People are going to be like, why are they drafting a running back? Well, because it's a position of attrition, and Dalvin Cook misses games. And so I like it. I would take Kylan Hill here.
Kylan Hill. He is one of the guys that if he's available at this spot, I would be that scout standing on top of the table, just demanding that we take him. He is everything that I want in a running back. He's got the attitude, kind of that junkyard dog kind of style, where he's just going to run you over and pound you in the mouth when you're done.
And I get that Vikings fans don't want to hear this, but like the adult thing to do here would be to plan for 2021 to not work out at a Super Bowl level and for major changes to happen after the season. I'm just saying, like, I'm not saying it's going to happen. You just have to sort of plan for the worst case scenario. And if you wind up at the end of an era, so to speak, at the end of 2021, you would probably look to trade Dalvin Cook in his prime for like a 2nd round pick, and you'd want some running backs of the future. I'm just listen, I'm not being negative. I'm planning for all scenarios here.
I agree. Let's do it, Dave. Kylan Hill, running back, Mississippi State. Ryan, I see you in the chat. I don't care about your Oklahoma guys. I really don't. I'm sorry. All right, so we got one pick left, and
it's got to be a special team. It's got to be a special teamer of some kind, right? It's Rick Spielman. Is there a punter out there?
I think one guy we didn't talk about, and he was on the board earlier, is Talanoa Hufanga, the safety out of USC. He's kind of going to be like an in the box guy, kind of like a hybrid-esque type player, and I think that you can utilize him as a developmental strong safety behind Xavier Woods. Not only that, but he's also a guy you could play early on in special teams, kind of filling that role that you mentioned here, Phil, and the fact that you can get a developmental player for the long term. And we haven't needed depth safety anyways. Your two safeties are Josh Metellus and Harrison Hand. And Harrison Hand's never played safety. And Metellus was honestly not that good at Michigan in 2019. So
yep. And you got to start thinking about life after Harrison Smith. I mean, this is whatever the extension and restructure looks like is probably going to be the last contract for him in a purple uniform. He's in his 30s. I'm actually kind of surprised he's still as good as he is. The style of play that he has put out there for 10 years or 9 years, whatever it's been. So you got to start thinking about life after Harrison Smith. I like the pick.
And I think the one thing that Harrison Smith has playing for him is he's never been this phenomenal athlete, and he's almost always been the most successful because he's smart and he's got great football IQ and instincts, and he's able to utilize that to maximize his athletic ability. So I think he'll be able to play another 5 years and still be relatively successful.
Look at that. 7 picks inside the first 143. I mean, I'll tell you what. If the draft plays out like this, it means that they probably signed a left tackle in free agency, but they will have all the weapons they need defensively with the veteran signings they've made, if they draft just like this, if they draft just this way in the first 2 rounds, then Mike Zimmer will have nothing to complain about from a personnel standpoint. He will have everything that he could ever want. And it would almost be a failure then if you don't have a top 5 defense in 2021. If he's right about Patrick Peterson, if they're right about Kwity Paye in the first round, etc.
Yeah, you'd be
Absolutely.
expecting top 5 at that point. Not just top 10, but top 5.
And unless you're talking like major injuries and stuff like we dealt with last year, losing out on Barr, losing out on Hunter, Pierce opting out. Unless you're dealing with that kind of stuff, there's no way that defense should be outside of the top 10. There's a lot of talent, a lot of room to grow for all those rookies who got max snaps last year. Cam Dantzler should easily be a CB2 in this league. Jeff Gladney with a full offseason should be much improved, considering that he was basically treated as CB1 by Mike Zimmer, and he just wasn't ready for it. He was coming off a knee injury where he had almost no offseason to prepare, and it was COVID. So there's a lot of room for this team to grow. And
plus, you got
top 5,
Mike
top
Hughes
10
finally healthy. You have 5
we'll
starting
see.
Corners.
I think the signing of Mackenzie Alexander might signify more injury concern with Mike Hughes than we thought. I'm wondering about that. We'll have to see.
I agree. I'm not convinced Mike Hughes is going to be on the team or play a significant role. You haven't been able to trust him since he tore his ACL his rookie season against Arizona. So it'd be great if he's able to contribute, but I don't think you can count on him for anything other than being a depth guy at this point.
Yeah. I think the moves that they've made in free agency sort of signify we can't rely on Mike Hughes to be a key player. And like Tyler said, if he is, awesome. But that's a lot of things to go through in a short amount of time for him to just sort of bounce back and be 100%.
Absolutely. With that, this has been Mock Draft Monday. Phil, it's been great having you on, talking ball, getting another perspective on here to kind of weave the Vikings through the draft process. So I greatly appreciate your time.
For sure. And Tyler, we'll get you on Purple Daily at some point between now and the draft so you can shed some knowledge to our audience and on our channel too. And of course, make us smarter.
Mm-hmm. Hey,
Yep.
I would love the opportunity. It'd be a good time.
Right on. Guys, thanks for having me. Appreciate it. And this should be a fun month-long stretch for our Purple to see what they've got up their sleeves.
You ain't kidding. With that,
absolutely.
Goal, everybody. Thank you for watching or listening. As always, if you like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications. And if you're listening to the podcast, please rate us on your favorite aggregator. SKOR, everybody.